Hi, Tim from Proclaim AV here, and today we're going to talk about setting up your PA mixer so you can get better audio into your live stream. Let's check it out. Now, just a quick disclaimer here at the beginning. If you're here to figure out how do I use my DAW to mix Dante, that's not this video. We're much more simple here. We're talking about how to use your PA mixer and try to get some better audio into your live stream. But I want to talk about a couple of things before we start the video, just to kind of let you think, get some gears turning in your head. The first thing is that you're going to have to mic things for the live stream that you don't normally mic for the house. One example is a piano, which is very loud, and probably you don't have to mic for your auditorium, and you may not even have a piano mic, but you may have to think about adding a piano mic if you're going to do a live stream, because those folks don't have the advantage of being in the same room with you. And so think of it in that way. If I were outside this room, where would I need to put microphones to be able to hear all the different components of my service? Now, this may mean that you have to set up a separate live stream mix. Now, it doesn't mean you have to physically use a different mixer, but it probably means that you're going to have to set up a different mix that balances things differently than you do in your auditorium, because a lot of things are loud enough that you're just reinforcing a little bit for the auditorium, but for the live stream, you're going to have to turn them up or balance them differently. Now, along with that, I think one of the things that a lot of people do is that they don't balance their audio well because they're not listening to it. There's no monitoring of it, if you know what I mean. So a good thing to do is to monitor your live stream so you can listen to it and go, oh, okay, that's really quiet, or I can't hear this person, or there's no piano. And that lets you know what you need to adjust and what needs to be turned down, etc. So that's important. Monitor your live stream audio. Now, one of the more unexpected things that folks are encountering is that as they start using their PA system to feed audio into their live stream, they begin to realize that magnifies all kinds of problems that may have already been existing in your PA system that you didn't realize were problems. So, for example, pastor's mic keeps dropping out. You didn't really notice it before because he was loud enough that it wasn't obvious, but on the live stream, everybody hears it cut in and out. And so noises or hums or buzzes or hisses, all that stuff, when it gets pushed out to the live stream, becomes much more obvious. So you may have some things to take care of on your PA system to get your live stream audio where it needs to be. Finally, I can't possibly tell every single one of you how to cable between your mixer and your live stream system, because I don't know what you're using. I have no idea. And so we'll talk about some basic things, but just understand, please, that I can't possibly address all the possible configurations. However, what we are going to talk about is how to set up a mix on your mixer board. Even that has its own bits of variation because obviously we're not all mixing on the same mixing console. Anyway, let's get into it. The first and, quite frankly, easiest thing to do is just to use the main mix that you're sending to your speakers and also send it to your live stream. Now, this can really work if you're already miking pretty much everything. It could be an easy alternative for you, and especially if you don't have somebody to mix a separate mix for that, then it could be a big plus. It's definitely better than using that echoey camera mic all the way back in the back of the auditorium. So think about that. It could be a possibility for you. The cons, of course, is that you don't have separate volume controls for your live stream. So things may be balanced one way for your auditorium, but they're just not balanced the same way or the way you would like them to be for the live stream. And you're going to get that. That's just the the negative side of using the main mix. Now, an alternative that you could try is using your subgroup, one of your subgroup outputs. Now, this is pretty close to using the main mix, but its advantage is that you could possibly add in additional microphones. For example, our example was a piano. You could add in a piano microphone. You just wouldn't assign it into the main mix. You would only assign it into the subgroup. Most mixers have a separate subgroup output, and you could use that to feed your live stream mix. All you got to do is go through and assign the channels that you want into the subgroup, and then you can use that subgroup, let's say subgroup 1, you could use a subgroup fader as a volume control for your live stream mix. Again, you're going to run into some situations where things are not balanced quite the way you would like them to be because you're just mirroring the main mix on the subgroup using the faders. So a good way to do this, if you're going to use a single board, is to use an auxiliary mix. And this isn't too difficult. In fact, many of you are already using auxiliary mixes for monitors. And so if your board has an open auxiliary mix, it's not too hard to set up an auxiliary mix for the live stream feed. And you can do the same thing you're doing for monitor. So that gives you individual volume control over each channel. And you can add as much of each channel as you need into that auxiliary mix or aux mix that sends off to your live stream. Now, it gets a little more complicated because there are two types of auxiliary mixes. There is a post-fader auxiliary mix, and there's a pre-fader auxiliary mix. And the difference, I explain in one of my other videos, and we'll talk about it a little bit here as well. So post-fader basically means that the fader, if it's up, that means that the volume level is dictated to be the same. It's up in the auxiliary mix. But if it's down, then it's down in the auxiliary mix. Now, what are the advantages of that? Well, the advantage of that is that if you're already mixing for your main mix, a post-fader auxiliary mix could get you most of the way there. And that will really help you. Like, you're already setting a basic level for that. Now, the advantage of this is that you can actually tweak a little bit up or down using the auxiliary knob on that channel. So if you have it set for the auditorium, but you need a lot less of it for the live stream, you can just turn that down a bit. Now, this is the method that I'm using right now in my church, and it's made less hard for me because I have a digital mixer and I have control software. So the person at the live stream console can remotely control their auxiliary mix up and down and tweak things as they want to. But the person at the main console is doing most of the work by turning the mics on and off and turning the faders up and down to a good starting position. So for me, it gets me probably 80% of the way there, and I just do additional tweaking to make it work. There is a downside to this, and here's what it is. On this situation, you're going to find out that, hey, I want to add that piano mic that we talked about, but we don't need it for the house. And if you are using the post fader, you're going to have it up a little bit in the house to get any kind of signal in for it. And then it may not be enough signal. Here's the workaround. If your board has subgroups, you can unassign that channel out of main mix, so it's not in the main mix at all. And then that channel, you can use the fader and set it up and down and set it off to your post-fader auxiliary mix. Now, if you just have an older stereo board that doesn't have subgroups, then a post-fader auxiliary mix can definitely present a problem in the situation. Let's talk about a pre-fader auxiliary mix. Some of you, this really may be your only option. And so with a pre-fader auxiliary mix, you're just going to basically have to run it like its own separate mix. All of its volumes are unaffected by your faders or whatever position they're in. You just run it like its own set of faders, except you're using knobs across that auxiliary mix. Now, there are some disadvantages to this. If you don't mute your channels when they're not in use, like you just pull the fader down, that can create a problem, because what happens is if you don't mute the channel, then it's live in the live stream. And so let's say pastor is done preaching and you pull his fader down, but there's something happening after the preaching. He might go to talk to somebody and that mic could be on in the live stream, and that could create an embarrassing situation. Okay, so it's one of the reasons that I don't just mix with faders. I tend to turn things on and off using the mute buttons or the on-off buttons, depending how your console is set up. So I always turn off microphones that are not in use. When you press a mute button in most mixers, you're turning off that volume for the entire mixer. So that mic is muted for the whole mixer. There are a couple of mixers where this is not the rule, but about 99% of them, if you hit the mute button, then, it's not going to go anywhere. And so that's one of the reasons that I try not to mix with faders. I tend to turn things on and off using my mute buttons so that the right mics come on at the right time and they come off at the right time. Sometimes I'll use faders to fade things in and out, like music or something like that. And in a pre-fader aux mix, you're not going to get that advantage, or you're going to have to go over there and pull the fader down and turn your pre-fader aux mix knob at the same time because you're trying to do two different mixes. So something to think about. Now that I've thrown all that stuff out there, hey, there's something bonus that I'll throw out here. For some of you, you're using your PA mix and it's perfectly fine, but you don't really have a way to add more microphones. And you might just want to add maybe a couple of stereo mics in your room to pick up congregational singing or anything else. So you might consider just adding a little mixer. I'll show you one here. This is a little Mackie Micro series that I have. And it's an older one. It's not a great one, but it's just something I have to show you. So in this situation, what I've done is I've taken my main out of my regular mixer and I've fed it into a stereo channel on this mixer. Now you can see I have 4 channels available over here where I could plug in a couple of room microphones to get that audio from the room microphones sent off to my live stream. Now, some of you, that might be a good option for you. I'm actually doing this right now, even though I have a 32 channel console at my church. I'm feeding the auxiliary out and into one of my, into a small mixer. And the reason why is that gives me actual faders at my mix position to turn the volume up and down. And I just like having real faders for that. I'm not having to try to go into software and tinker with it. I just have a fader there. And you can buy an inexpensive mixer, for under $100, $150 to do this for your live stream. And it might be a good option for you. I'm not saying everybody has to. I'm just saying, hey, here's an option. So anyway, I know that's a lot of stuff. But I know a lot of you are trying to kind of push your live stream production up to the next level. And good audio is really part of that. It really can make or break. If your video is fantastic, but people can't hear what's going on, then that's a problem for a live stream. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful and it's given you some ideas. Thanks for watching.